The cargo ship drifted toward the Caldrith border station like a piece of floating trash. Inside the cockpit, Dae-sung kept his eyes down and his shoulders hunched. He had practiced this posture for 3 years now, the posture of a broken man. The communication panel beeped. A rough voice came through, speaking the harsh, clicking language of the Caldrith. Dae-sung understood every word, but he waited. He always waited. Humans who understood too quickly got watched too closely. Human vessel, transmit your codes. Now. Dae-sung pressed the button with a shaking hand. The shake was fake, but it looked real. Yes, immediately. Sending now. The Caldrith on the other end laughed. That cruel laugh they all made when they saw humans jump. Dae-sung had heard it 1,000 times. He had memorized it. He had added it to his list. The station grew larger in his viewport. It was ugly, all gray metal and sharp edges. The Caldrith built everything like weapons. Even their homes looked ready to kill. 3 years ago, those weapons had torn through Earth's defenses in 6 weeks. The war had been fast and brutal. Humanity never stood a chance. Or that's what the Caldrith thought. The docking clamps grabbed his ship with a metal scream. Dae-sung gathered his papers, made sure his flight suit looked dirty and worn, and shuffled toward the airlock. His back hurt from sleeping in the pilot's chair. That part wasn't an act, but the fear on his face was painted on like a mask. The airlock opened. The station air hit him, recycled and stale with a chemical smell. 2 Caldrith guards stood waiting. They were tall, maybe 7 feet, with gray-green scaled skin and yellow eyes that saw in 3 different light spectrums. Their claws clicked on the metal floor. Both carried plasma rifles. Move, human, inspection. Dae-sung nodded quickly and stepped onto the station. His boots made soft sounds. The guards' claws made threatening sounds. This was the dance. The Caldrith led and humans followed. That's how it had been for 3 years. Commander Vector waited in the inspection bay. He was bigger than the other Caldrith, with scars across his snout and medals on his chest armor. He looked at Dae-sung the way someone looks at an insect. Interesting enough to step on, not interesting enough to remember. Papers. Dae-sung handed them over with both hands, bowing slightly. The bow made him sick, but he did it anyway. Vector barely looked at the documents. He was more interested in making Dae-sung stand there and wait. Power games. The Caldrith loved power games. You carry medical supplies. For the colony on Sector 7. Yes, Commander. Antibiotics, bandages, basic equipment. Open the cargo bay. The inspection took an hour. The guards tore through everything, throwing boxes around, breaking containers. They found nothing because there was nothing to find. Not today. Dae-sung's cargo was exactly what the papers said. Clean shipments built trust. Clean shipments made them lazy. Vector finally waved a claw. It's clear. You have 12 hours on the station before your next flight. Stay in the human zones. Don't cause trouble. Yes, Commander. Thank you, Commander. Dae-sung gathered his scattered cargo and started reloading. The guards left laughing about something. Probably about him. Let them laugh. Laughter made people careless. The human zones were in the lower decks. Always the lower decks. The Caldrith kept humans close to the waste recyclers and engine rooms, close to the noise and the smell. It was another power game, another reminder of who was in charge. Dae-sung walked through the corridors with his head down. Other humans passed him. Some looked broken for real. Others were better at acting. He knew which was which. He had made it his job to know. The common area was crowded. Humans sat at metal tables eating protein paste and drinking recycled water. Everything tasted the same. Everything looked gray. The Caldrith didn't believe in comfort for conquered species. A man sat in the corner. Hyun-woo, station administrator. He wore a cleaner uniform than the others and ate real food from a sealed container. The Caldrith rewarded their human helpers with small pleasures. It kept them loyal. It kept them soft. Hyun-woo saw Dae-sung and smiled. It was a politician's smile, friendly and empty. Dae-sung, good to see you made it safely. How was the flight? Long, quiet. Dae-sung sat down across from him, but not too close. Never too close to collaborators. I have your next assignment. Sector 12, industrial shipment. Good pay. Hyun-woo slid a data chip across the table. His fingers were clean. No engine grease, no cargo dirt. He pushed papers while other humans broke their backs. Thank you, Hyun-woo. We all do our part, right? Keeping the peace, keeping things running. Hyun-woo stood up, brushing invisible dust from his uniform. The Caldrith aren't so bad once you understand them. They value order, efficiency. We can live well if we cooperate. Daesung nodded and said nothing. Hyunwoo walked away, probably to report this conversation to his Caldrith masters. They like to know everything. They like to think they knew everything. Hours passed. Daesung ate his protein paste and waited. The station had rhythms. Guard shifts, worker rotations, maintenance cycles. He had learned them all. At hour 8, the lights dimmed for night cycle. At hour 9, the corridor outside the bathroom was empty for exactly 4 minutes. A woman walked past his table. She didn't look at him. She dropped a small piece of paper near his foot and kept walking. G1. Resistance contact. Careful, paranoid, smart. Daesung waited 30 seconds, then bent down to tie his boot. His hand closed around the paper. The note was simple. Cell compromised, they know. Don't make contact. He burned the paper with a small plasma lighter, watching it turn to ash. Then he sat back and allowed himself the smallest smile. Of course the cell was compromised. He had compromised it himself 2 weeks ago. Anonymous tip to Caldrith intelligence, untraceable. The resistance cell had been making noise, drawing attention. Attention got people killed, but more importantly, a compromised cell meant the Caldrith would watch it closely. And while they watched the obvious threat, they wouldn't see the real one. Ji-won appeared again, walking slowly past. She looked nervous. Daesung stood and followed at a distance. They met in a maintenance corridor near the humming pipes that carried waste through the station walls. The smell was terrible. No cameras here, did you get my warning? Ji-won whispered. Yes. Daesung, it's bad. They arrested Sangwoo and Bora yesterday. The Caldrith know about the safe house on deck 9. We need to shut everything down and hide. Daesung looked at her carefully. Ji-won was brave. She had been fighting since the occupation started, but she still thought like a resistance fighter. Small moves, careful plans, hiding in shadows, he thought like a soldier. I know about the arrests, he said quietly. Ji-won blinked. How? I just found out 3 hours ago. Because I needed the cell exposed. Her face went pale. What, you reported them? Daesung, those are our people. Those people were going to get themselves killed. Sloppy operations, too much talk, not enough security. Better the Caldrith arrest them now than kill them later. His voice was flat, empty of emotion. Sangwoo will spend 6 months in detention. Bora will get 4 months. They'll be released. But the Caldrith will think they broke the resistance in this sector. You're insane. You sacrificed our own people, I saved them. And I gave the Caldrith a win. Small enough to satisfy them, big enough to make them lazy. Daesung leaned closer. While they celebrate catching a few resistance members, they won't notice what I'm really doing. Ji-won stared at him. What are you really doing? Winning a war. He pressed a data chip into her hand. This has real intelligence. Fleet movements, supply routes, commander schedules. Share it with your remaining contacts, but stay quiet. No attacks, no sabotage. Not yet. Then when? When I've made them afraid. Daesung turned to leave, then stopped. And Ji-won? Don't try to follow me. Don't try to figure out my plans. The less you know, the safer you are. He walked away before she could respond. His footsteps echoed in the empty corridor. Behind him, Ji-won stood in the shadows, holding the data chip like it might explode. Back in the common area, Daesung returned to his table. He sat down, ate more protein paste, and watched the other humans. Some talked quietly. Some stared at nothing. Some cried when they thought no one was looking. Commander Vectar walked through, making his evening rounds. He looked at the humans with those yellow eyes, seeing cattle instead of people, seeing victims instead of threats. Daesung kept his head down and his face empty, but in his mind he was counting. Counting the guards, counting their weapons, counting their weaknesses. He had been counting for 3 years. He had been patient. The Caldrith had made a simple mistake. They had judged humanity by its military. They saw Earth's armies fall and thought all humans were weak. They never asked what one human could do. One human who knew how to wait. One human who knew how to plan. One human who had nothing left to lose. Daesung had been a soldier once. Special operations. The best of the best. When Earth fell, his unit had been on a deep cover mission in Caldrith space. By the time they got the surrender order, it was too late to return home. One by one, his team had been discovered and killed. He was the last. For 3 years, he had played the part of a broken cargo pilot. For 3 years, he had memorized names, faces, schedules, and weaknesses. For 3 years he had built his list, and now finally he was ready to begin. The lights in the common area flickered. The fuel depot on Sector 12 burned for 3 days. Official reports called it human error. A careless worker, a faulty valve, an unfortunate accident. The Caldrith investigators filed their paperwork and moved on. They had more important things to worry about than incompetent humans making mistakes. In the intelligence division of the Caldrith Regional Command, Sun-Hee stared at her screen and frowned. She was young for an analyst, only 26, but she had a gift for seeing patterns. And she was seeing a pattern now: 4 accidents in 6 weeks, all at facilities where human workers were present, all causing significant damage, all blamed on human incompetence. 1 accident was normal. 2 was unfortunate. 3 was suspicious. 4 was a pattern. Sun-Hee pulled up the flight logs. Human cargo ships traveled between all the affected sites. Hundreds of ships, thousands of flight records. She started filtering data, looking for connections. Her supervisor walked past. "Still working, Sun-Hee? It's late. Just finishing some analysis. Don't waste time on the human incidents. The investigators already closed those cases." He laughed. "Humans being humans. Can't expect them to operate complex machinery." Sun-Hee nodded and smiled. When he left, she kept working. She had learned long ago that being underestimated could be useful. People left you alone to do your job. By morning, she had a list of 12 ships that had visited at least 3 of the 4 accident sites. By afternoon, she had narrowed it to 3 ships that visited all 4. And by evening, she had a name: Daesung, human cargo pilot. License for 4 years, flying solo for 3. Clean record, no complaints, no incidents. He was invisible, perfect. Sun-Hee sat back and rubbed her eyes. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe it was just coincidence. But her instinct said otherwise. Her instinct said this human was doing something. The question was what? Across the station network in the lower maintenance decks, Taemin pushed his cleaning cart through empty corridors. No one paid attention to janitors. They were part of the background, like the walls or the air recyclers. Invisible. That's why Daesung had recruited him. Taemin stopped at a maintenance panel and pretended to check the filters. While his hands worked, his eyes scanned the corridor. Empty. He pulled a small device from his pocket and attached it to the internal network port. 20 seconds of upload and it was done. The device went back in his pocket. The panel closed. The cart moved on. Nobody saw. Nobody cared. Just a human janitor doing his job. The device was a data tap. It would copy every communication through this network junction and send it to a hidden server. Daesung had 47 of these taps across the station network. They collected everything: guard schedules, supply manifests, personnel records, classified orders. Information was a weapon. Daesung had taught Taemin that. And Taemin, who had lost his wife and daughter in the invasion, was happy to help sharpen that weapon. In the command center, General Cormeth reviewed his sector reports. Everything looked good. Production was up. Resistance activity was down. The humans were learning their place. He had crushed 3 resistance cells this month alone. The latest arrest had broken their network in this entire region. His aide entered and saluted. "General, the monthly supply convoy is ready to depart." "Good. Make sure the escort is adequate." "I don't want any problems." "Yes, General. Though honestly, what problems could there be? The humans have no fleet, no weapons. They're beaten." Cormeth nodded. "Never underestimate an enemy completely." "But yes, the humans are no longer a threat. They lack the organization, the resources, the will to fight." He was wrong about all 3 things, but he wouldn't realize it until much later. The supply convoy left the station 3 days later. 8 cargo ships, 2 escort fighters, all heading to the military base in Sector 9. The route was standard, traveled twice a month. No one expected any trouble. On the 3rd day of the journey, the lead escort fighter reported a distress signal. A civilian ship, engines failing, requesting assistance. Standard protocol required them to investigate. The fighter pilot approached the damaged ship carefully. It was a small human cargo vessel drifting. No life signs on sensors. Probably abandoned. He moved closer to confirm. The ship exploded. The blast was massive, far bigger than a normal ship core breach. Military-grade explosives carefully placed and remotely detonated. The fighter was destroyed instantly. The second fighter was caught in the debris field and damaged. In the chaos, two of the convoy cargo ships changed course. They weren't damaged. They weren't in danger. They simply broke formation and activated drives they shouldn't have. Military drives, hidden under their civilian hulls. By the time the convoy realized what was happening, both ships had jumped to hyperspace with their stolen cargo. Weapons, ammunition, high-grade fuel, enough to supply a small army. General Cormeth was still reading the incident report when the next one came in. A garrison on Sector 4 attacked in the night. The attackers had inside knowledge of guard rotations and weak points. They hit fast, took weapons and equipment, and vanished. No casualties, just embarrassment. Then a third report. A communications relay sabotaged. The damage was precise, targeting specific systems. It would take weeks to repair. Cormeth's claws tapped against his desk. 3 incidents in 5 days. That's not coincidence. His intelligence officer stood at attention. We believe the resistance is becoming more organized, General. Perhaps they have a new leader. Find them. I want security doubled at all facilities. Increase patrols. Check every human worker, every cargo ship, every... General. His aide entered quickly. Sir, we just received another report. 3 of our collaborators were found dead. Staged to look like accidents, but intelligence confirms assassination. Cormeth stood slowly. His yellow eyes were cold. Which collaborators? The aide read from his tablet. Hyunwoo Station Administrator, Pyongho Supply Coordinator, Enji Personnel Manager. All humans working with our occupation authority. All killed within the last 48 hours. The room went silent. Killing collaborators was a message. A very specific message. Someone was saying that helping the Caldrith was a death sentence. Pull the records, Cormeth ordered. Every human who had access to those 3. Every worker, every pilot, every... General, that's over 4,000 humans. Then start checking 4,000 humans. Now. In her small office, Sun-hee was already checking. She had added the new incidents to her data. The pattern was clearer now, and that cargo pilot, Dae-sung, kept appearing. Not directly. Never directly, but always somewhere in the vicinity. Always with a legitimate reason to be there. She pulled his photograph onto her screen. A plain face, tired eyes, slightly hunched shoulders. He looked like 1,000 other humans. Broken by defeat, just trying to survive. But Sun-hee had learned to look past appearances. She started digging deeper into his background. His license showed 4 years of flight experience, but where had he trained? Who had certified him? The records were there, but they felt wrong. Too clean, too perfect. She found his military record. Standard infantry, discharged after the invasion. But when she checked the unit designation, it had been redacted. Sealed by Earth's old military command before they surrendered. Why would an infantry soldier's record be sealed? Sun-hee opened a new search, looking for units with sealed records. The list was short. Most military records had been turned over to the Caldrith. Only a handful remained classified. Special operations, intelligence, black missions that officially never happened. Her hands stopped moving. She stared at the screen. That tired cargo pilot wasn't infantry. He was special forces, and he had been hiding in plain sight for 3 years. Sun-hee reached for her communication panel, then stopped. If she reported this, her superiors would laugh. She had no proof, just suspicions and coincidences. They would tell her she was seeing patterns where none existed. That she was giving humans too much credit. She needed more evidence. But more evidence meant more incidents. More deaths. And if she was right, this human was just getting started. On a cargo ship heading toward Sector 8, Dae-sung sat in his cockpit and reviewed his progress. 4 facilities damaged, 1 convoy raided, 3 collaborators eliminated. The Caldrith were starting to notice, but they were still looking in the wrong direction. They thought they were fighting a resistance movement. An organization? They didn't realize they were fighting one man with a list. His communication panel beeped. Automated station traffic control, routing him to a docking bay. Dae-sung acknowledged and adjusted his course. This station was larger, more heavily guarded. It housed a Caldrith research facility, off-limits to most humans. But Dae-sung had a delivery. Medical supplies for the human workers. Completely legitimate. His papers were perfect because he had stolen the real shipping manifest and replaced it with his own. The real supplies would arrive 2 days late, and by then it wouldn't matter. The station grew larger in his viewport. He could see patrol ships circling it like sharks. More guards than usual. They were getting nervous. Good. Nervous people made mistakes. Daesung landed without incident. The inspection was more thorough this time, but they found nothing. His cargo was exactly what it should be. Medical supplies. Bandages, medicine, basic equipment. They didn't notice the medical scanner had been modified. They didn't notice the extra weight in the equipment cases. The bounty was posted across 12 systems. 1 million credits for the human called Daesung. Dead or alive, though the Kaldreth military preferred alive. They wanted to make an example. They wanted other humans to see what happened to troublemakers. Young Sik read the bounty posting 3 times. 1 million credits. That was enough to retire. Enough to buy a ship and disappear to the outer colonies. Enough to stop hunting and start living. He was good at hunting. 23 captures in 5 years. Smugglers, pirates, deserters. He had caught them all. And now the Kaldreth military wanted him to catch a human cargo pilot who was somehow dismantling their occupation one piece at a time. Young Sik studied the photograph. Plain face, average build, nothing remarkable. But the incident reports told a different story. 12 facility destructions, 27 dead collaborators, supply convoys hijacked, intelligence networks compromised, all connected to this one human. Either Daesung was incredibly lucky or incredibly dangerous. Young Sik had learned long ago that luck eventually ran out. Dangerous people had to be respected. He packed his gear and booked passage to Sector 10. That's where the most recent incident had occurred. A fuel processing plant had exploded, killing 4 Kaldreth supervisors. The blast pattern suggested professional demolition. The investigation blamed faulty equipment. But the investigators hadn't talked to the human workers. They never did. Young Sik always talked to the workers. They saw things. They knew things. And they talked if you approached them right. On the station in Sector 10, Mireille was trying to understand what she had found. She was an engineer, trained before the invasion, working now in the station's database maintenance division. It was boring work, but it kept her alive. And sometimes boring work led to interesting discoveries. She had been running a routine backup when she stumbled across a hidden partition. Someone had buried files deep in the system, protected by military-grade encryption. She shouldn't have been able to access them. But whoever had set up the encryption had made a small mistake. A single character error in the code. And Mireille was very good at finding mistakes. The files contained records. Kaldreth military records. Recordings of things that should never have been recorded. Villages burned. Prisoners executed. Children used as hostages. 3 years of war crimes carefully documented and hidden away. Mireille felt sick looking at them. She wanted to delete the files, pretend she had never seen them. But she couldn't. Someone had hidden these files deliberately. Someone wanted evidence preserved. She copied everything to an encrypted drive and buried it in her quarters. Then she tried to figure out who had put the files there in the first place. The digital trail was faint, but it existed. A cargo ship computer had accessed the system 6 months ago. Brief connection, just long enough to upload the files. The ship ID led to a pilot named Daesung. Mireille knew that name. Everyone knew it now. The human terrorist, the ghost, the man the Kaldreth were hunting across 12 systems. She sat in her small room and stared at the encrypted drive. If she turned this over to the Kaldreth, they would destroy it. Cover it up. Continue as if nothing had happened. If she kept it, she was committing treason. Death sentence, no trial. But if she could get it to the right people, if she could expose what the Kaldreth had done, maybe it would matter. Maybe it would change something. She didn't know how to contact the resistance. She had kept her head down for 3 years, surviving, not resisting. But now she had something worth resisting for. In the command center, General Cormeth reviewed the security reports with growing frustration. Despite doubled patrols and increased inspections, the incidents continued. A supply depot sabotaged. A communications hub taken offline. A transport ship hijacked. And now Sun-Hee was sitting across from him claiming it was all one person. "You're telling me," Cormeth said slowly, "that one human cargo pilot is responsible for all of this. One person." Sun-Hee kept her voice steady. The evidence supports it, General. His flight records place him near every incident. His background is falsified. His behavior pattern matches military training, special operations specifically. Humans don't have special operations anymore. We crushed their military. We crushed their organized forces. But special operations soldiers don't need organization. They're trained to operate alone, behind enemy lines, with minimal support. She pulled up a tactical map. Look at the pattern. He's not attacking randomly. He's targeting infrastructure, supply lines, and morale. Classic asymmetric warfare. Cormeth studied the map. The incidents formed a web across his command region, each one precisely chosen to cause maximum disruption with minimal exposure. It was elegant in a terrifying way. Even if you're right, he said, how is he doing this alone? These attacks require planning, intelligence, resources. He's building a network, recruiting humans in positions to gather information and provide support. Janitors, technicians, workers no one pays attention to. Sun He highlighted several names. I've identified 12 possible associates. All have access to sensitive areas. All have been in contact with Dae Sung at some point. Cormeth's claws drummed on the desk. Arrest them. Interrogate them. Find out what they know. If we arrest them, we show our hand. Dae Sung will know we're onto him and adjust. I recommend surveillance instead. Follow them, and they'll lead us to him. The general considered this. Sun He was young, but she was smart, and she understood human behavior better than most Caldrith officers. That's why he had promoted her. Do it, but I want results. Every day he operates freely is another day our authority looks weak. Sun He saluted and left. Outside the command center, she stopped and took a breath. She had bought time, maybe a few weeks, but eventually, she would have to produce results. Eventually, she would have to choose between her duty and something else. She wasn't sure what that something else was yet. But it was growing in her mind, a question she couldn't ignore. What if Dae Sung was right? What if the occupation was wrong? Young Sik arrived on the station and immediately started his investigation. He had learned to blend in, to become forgettable. He wore simple clothes, kept his head down, acted like just another traveler. Nobody paid attention. He found the fuel processing plant that had exploded and studied the wreckage. The official report blamed a pressure valve failure. But young Sik had blown enough things up to recognize demolition work. The charges had been placed precisely at load-bearing points, professional work, military work. He interviewed workers, asking casual questions about the day of the explosion. Most remembered nothing unusual. But one worker, an older human named Dong Hyun, mentioned a cargo delivery that morning. Medical supplies for the clinic. The pilot had been polite, quiet, forgettable. Young Sik showed him Dae Sung's photograph. Dong Hyun squinted at it and nodded. Could be him. Honestly, he looked like every other tired pilot. Nothing special. Nothing special? That phrase kept appearing. Everyone who saw Dae Sung described him as unremarkable, forgettable, average. It was the perfect disguise because people didn't suspect average. But young Sik knew better. The most dangerous prey was the one you didn't see coming. He checked the cargo delivery records. The shipment had come from Sector 8. Young Sik booked passage there following the trail backward. If he could predict where Dae Sung had been, maybe he could predict where he would go next. On his ship, heading toward Sector 5, Dae Sung received an encrypted message. It was short, just a name and location. Mi Ray. Station Datab as engineer. Has important information. The message came from Taemin, who had heard it from Ji-won, who had gotten a carefully anonymous tip. Dae Sung's network was working the way he had designed it. Information flowing upward, orders flowing down, no one person knowing too much. He changed course. Sector 5 could wait. An engineer with important information was worth investigating. Either she had discovered something useful, or she had discovered him. Both possibilities required his attention. He arrived at the station 2 days later. The security was heavy, but that was normal now. Every station had increased patrols. Every checkpoint was taking longer. The Caldrith were nervous. Good. Dae Sung made his delivery and sent a coded signal. Mireille would either understand it or she wouldn't. If she understood, she would meet him in the maintenance section, level 3, in 1 hour. If she didn't understand, nothing would happen. She understood. Mireille appeared exactly on time, looking terrified and determined in equal measure. Daesung recognized that look. He had worn it himself once, a long time ago. "You're him," she whispered. "Daesung, the one they're hunting. And you're the engineer who found files she shouldn't have found." He kept his voice neutral. "Show me." She pulled out the encrypted drive with shaking hands. "War crimes, massacres, things they covered up. I don't know why you hid them in our system, but I found them, and I want to help." Daesung took the drive and checked it. Everything was there, exactly as he had uploaded it 6 months ago. He had hidden evidence like this across 20 systems: insurance, leverage, ammunition for when the time was right. "Why do you want to help?" he asked. "Because I'm tired of being afraid. Because I'm tired of pretending this is normal. Because someone needs to do something." Her voice was getting stronger. "I can do more. I have access to systems. I can gather information, plant files." The list appeared on every screen simultaneously. Public terminals, military networks, civilian broadcasts. 73 names. All Caldrith officials. All high-ranking. And next to 12 of the names, a red mark. Deceased. General Cormath stared at the list and felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Fear. His name was on the list. Number 17. The message below the names was simple. "You took our world. Now we take yours, one by one." Panic spread through the Caldrith command structure like fire through dry grass. Officers who never worried about security suddenly demanded bodyguards. Commanders who slept peacefully now checked their doors 3 times. Fear was a virus and it was spreading. Sun He traced the broadcast source. It came from everywhere and nowhere. Routed through 100 servers, bounced across systems impossible to track to a single origin. Whoever released it understood network security at an expert level. She knew it was Daesung. She had known for weeks, but now she had a choice to make. Report what she knew and watch the Caldrith hunt him down, or stay silent and see where this led. The choice should have been easy. She was Caldrith. He was the enemy. But watching the fear spread through her superiors, watching them realize they weren't untouchable, she felt something unexpected. Satisfaction. She buried her report deeper in classified files and kept watching. Young-Sik had found the pattern. Daesung moved in a circuit, visiting certain stations on a regular schedule. The schedule looked random but wasn't. Each stop served a purpose. Intelligence gathering, recruitment, preparation. He was building towards something big. Young-Sik calculated the next likely target and traveled there 3 days early. A military supply station in Sector 4. Heavy security, important cargo. If Daesung was escalating, this would be his next target. He arrived and started surveillance, watching the cargo ships come and go, watching the workers, waiting for a tired pilot with a forgettable face. Daesung appeared on schedule. His ship docked in Bay 7. His papers were perfect. His cargo was routine. He moved through inspection like a ghost, there but not really present. Young-Sik followed at a distance, watched him make his delivery, watched him eat in the common area, watched him prepare for departure. Everything was normal. Everything was exactly as it should be. But Young-Sik had hunted enough prey to know when something was wrong. Daesung was too perfect, too routine. It felt rehearsed, like a performance. When Daesung launched his ship, Young-Sik made his decision. He rented a small fast ship and followed, staying far enough back to avoid detection, close enough to track. The hunt was on. Daesung knew he was being followed within an hour. The ship behind him was trying to stay hidden, but space was vast and empty. Any movement stood out. He checked his sensors and identified the vessel. Small civilian craft, single occupant, good engines. A bounty hunter or a spy. Either way, someone who needed to be dealt with. He adjusted his course slightly. Not enough to be obvious. Just a small deviation toward an asteroid field near the system's edge. The field was marked as hazardous on navigation charts. Ships avoided it. Perfect place for an ambush. Young-Sik followed the cargo ship into the asteroid field and immediately knew he had made a mistake. This wasn't evasion. This was tactical positioning. He was the prey now. Daesung's cargo ship turned suddenly, engines flaring. It wasn't running. It was attacking. The routine cargo vessel had military-grade weapons hidden in modified cargo pods. Plasma cannons opened fire. Young-Sik dodged, his ship weaving through asteroids. Return fire sparked against rock. This human wasn't just a terrorist. He was a combat pilot, trained, experienced, deadly. They danced through the asteroid field for 20 minutes, both ships taking damage, both pilots refusing to break. It was a stalemate that couldn't last. Eventually, someone would make a mistake. Young-Sik made it first. A miscalculated turn brought him too close to a large asteroid. His ship clipped the edge, spun, engine stuttering. Daesung had a clear shot, but he didn't fire. Instead, his voice came through the communication channel. "You're good. Better than the others they've sent. But you're following the wrong person." Young-Sik steadied his ship, breathing hard. "You're a terrorist. You're killing people. I'm a soldier, and I'm killing the enemy." Daesung's voice was calm. "Check your ship's computer. I just sent you a file. Look at it before you decide who the real terrorists are." "Why would I trust anything you send?" "Because you're a hunter, and hunters need to understand their prey. Look at the file, then decide if you still want to kill me." The communication cut off. Daesung's ship jumped to hyperspace, vanishing. Young-Sik was left alone in the asteroid field with a damaged ship and a mysterious file. He should have deleted it immediately. Instead, he opened it. The images made him sick. Video recordings, official Kaldrith military documentation. Villages burned. Prisoners executed without trial. Children used as hostages to control populations. 3 years of systematic cruelty, carefully recorded and hidden. Young-Sik had worked for the Kaldrith for 5 years. He had believed they were bringing order to chaos, civilization to primitive species, but this wasn't civilization. This was genocide dressed in uniforms. He sat in his damaged ship and stared at the evidence. Everything he had believed was a lie. Everything he had done in service to that lie was a crime. And the human he had been hunting was fighting a war that needed to be fought. Young-Sik made his choice. He deleted his tracking data, falsified his reports, told the Kaldrith he had lost Daesung's trail in the asteroid field. Then he started looking for a way to contact the resistance. In the Kaldrith High Council chambers, Admiral Threknor addressed the emergency session. "The human terrorist threat has reached critical levels. We must respond with overwhelming force, scorched earth tactics. If we cannot control the human population, we eliminate it." Counselor Jae-hyun stood in opposition. "That's genocide. We're not exterminators. We're supposed to bring order, not death. Order requires fear. The humans no longer fear us. This Daesung has made us look weak. We need to remind them of the consequences of rebellion. By killing millions? How does that make us different from the monsters in those leaked files?" Threknor's eyes narrowed. "You've seen the files?" "Everyone has seen them. They're spreading across every network. Independent species are asking questions. Our allies are having doubts. We're losing diplomatic support because of our own actions." Jae-hyun gestured at the council. "We need to withdraw from human space. Negotiate a settlement. Before this becomes a war we can't win. We already won the war. 3 years ago, did we?" Jae-hyun pulled up a tactical map. "Look at this. Supply lines disrupted. Infrastructure damaged. Morale collapsing. Our forces are spread thin, protecting administrators who live in fear. One human did this? One? What happens when 1,000 decide to follow his example? What happens when 1,000,000? The council chamber erupted in argument. Half supported Threknor's hardline approach. Half supported Jae-hyun's withdrawal. The Kaldrith Empire, unified for centuries, was beginning to fracture. Sora watched the council broadcast from her hidden terminal. She was a data specialist, one of 30 humans working in the Kaldrith administrative complex. For 3 years she had processed their numbers, filed their reports, and kept her head down. Then Daesung had contacted her. He hadn't asked much. Just install a program, monitor communications, pass along interesting information, easy tasks that felt like betrayal every time she completed them. But the alternative was doing nothing. And she was tired of doing nothing. The latest information she gathered was explosive. Admiral Threknor was planning a military operation called Final Solution. The name alone told her everything she needed to know. Mass arrests, labor camps, executions. The Kaldrith were preparing to crush humanity permanently. She encrypted the data and sent it through the secure channel Daesung had provided. Within hours, it would reach the resistance. Within days, it would reach independent news networks. Within weeks, the galaxy would know what the Kaldrith were planning. But first, it reached Daesung. He sat in his hidden facility, a converted mining station in an abandoned system. Around him, holographic displays showed the complete intelligence picture: network maps, supply routes, personnel files. 3 years of collected data, all pointing toward this moment. The final solution file confirmed what he had suspected. The Kaldrith were preparing to end this the brutal way, which meant he had to end it first, but not with violence. Violence would justify their response. He needed something better. He needed to destroy them from within. Mai Ray had provided access codes to the Kaldrith central database. Taemin had mapped their communication networks. Young Sik had sent location data for military assets. Sora had delivered operational plans. Jiwon had coordinated resistance cells across 18 systems. And Sunhee, without knowing it, had delayed investigations just long enough. All the pieces were in place. All the players positioned. Now he just needed to light the fuse. Daesung activated his communication array and sent a single encrypted message to all his contacts. Operation Daybreak. Execute in 72 hours. No more hiding. No more waiting. We end this. In the Resistance headquarters, Haewon received the message and called an emergency meeting. He's making his move. Whatever he's been planning, it's happening now. The galaxy woke up to truth. Every news network, every public terminal, every communication channel carried the same message. 3 years of Kaldrith war crimes displayed in perfect detail. Official documents. Video recordings. Orders signed by generals and approved by the High Council. There was no denying it. No covering it up. The evidence was everywhere. Copied 1,000,000 times, spread across 1,000 systems. Within hours, independent species were issuing statements. Trade agreements were suspended. Diplomatic relations severed. The Kaldrith Empire's allies were abandoning them. Admiral Threknor watched his authority collapse in real time. 3 of his fleet commanders refused orders. 2 garrison commanders surrendered their positions without fighting. A dozen civilian governors demanded his resignation. The Empire was fracturing. "Find that human," he screamed at his staff. "Find him and kill him. I want his head delivered to me personally." But Daesung wasn't hiding. He was attacking. The first strike hit the supply depot on Sector 9, a coordinated assault by 50 humans armed with stolen Kaldrith weapons. They knew every guard position, every security measure, every weakness. The attack lasted 18 minutes. The depot was destroyed. The humans vanished before reinforcements arrived. The second strike hit the communication hub on Sector 12. Simultaneous explosions at 4 locations. The hub went dark. 3 sectors lost connection with Central Command. The third strike was different. A Kaldrith prison holding human resistance members. The attack freed 200 prisoners. But instead of escaping, they stayed. They took the prison. They turned it into a fortress. And they broadcast a message: "We're not running anymore. Come and take it back." General Cormeth mobilized his forces. This was an opportunity. If he crushed this resistance stronghold, he could restore order, show strength, turn the tide. He didn't know it was a trap. Daesung watched from orbit as Cormeth's forces assembled. 3 full battalions, heavy armor, air support. Enough firepower to level the prison 10 times over. It was exactly what he had expected. The Kaldrith always responded to defiance with overwhelming force. He activated his communication channel. "All units, begin Phase 2. Across the system, the real attacks began." While Cormeth focused on the prison, Daesung hit his supply lines, his fuel depots, his command centers. By the time Cormeth realized the prison was bait, his forces were running low on ammunition and fuel. The siege of the prison lasted 3 days. But it wasn't a siege anymore. It was a stalemate. And with every hour that passed, the Kaldrith looked weaker. More human systems rose in rebellion. More Kaldrith forces withdrew to protect their homeworlds. Inside the prison, Haewon coordinated the defense. She had opposed Daesung's methods. But now, standing behind reinforced walls with a weapon in her hands, she understood. Sometimes you couldn't win by being careful. Sometimes you had to force the enemy to choose between bad options. "How long can we hold?" Jiwon asked beside her. "Long enough," Haewon replied. "Daesung says 3 days." Then something changes. Do you trust him? No, but I trust that he wants the same thing we do. And right now that's enough. The change came on the fourth day. Counselor Jae-hyun arrived at the prison with a small diplomatic ship. No weapons, no armor. Just a white flag and a request to negotiate. General Kormeth tried to stop him. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Then we lose, Jae-hyun replied. The empire is falling apart. Our allies have abandoned us. Our economy is crashing. We can kill every human in this prison and it won't change anything. The war is over. We just need to decide how it ends. Haewon met Jae-hyun in the prison's command center. The Kaldrith counselor looked tired. Defeated. Human. I'm authorized to offer terms, he said. Immediate ceasefire. Withdrawal of all Kaldrith forces from human space within 6 months. Reparations for damages. War crimes trials for those responsible. And Dae-sung? Haewon asked, full pardon. For him and everyone who fought with him. Jae-hyun paused. Though I suspect he won't accept it. Men like him don't stop fighting just because the war ends. He'll accept it if the terms are real. If you actually leave. If you face justice for what you did. The High Council is divided. Half want to fight to the last ship. But the other half sees reality. We can't win this. Not anymore. One human showed us that. Jae-hyun leaned forward. Where is he? I need to speak with him directly. I don't know. He contacts us. We don't contact him. That was only partially true. Haewon had a way to reach Dae-sung. But she wanted to hear the full terms before bringing him into negotiations. He was too unpredictable, too willing to walk away from peace if it wasn't perfect. The negotiations took 2 days. Every clause was argued. Every word was examined. The resistance wanted guarantees. The Kaldrith wanted dignity. Both sides wanted the fighting to stop. Finally, they had an agreement. Conditional ceasefire. Kaldrith withdrawal beginning immediately. Independent observers to monitor the transition. War crimes tribunal with neutral judges. And amnesty for all human resistance fighters. Haewon sent the message to Dae-sung. We have terms. They're good. Better than we hoped. You need to approve them. The response came 3 hours later. Just 2 words. Not yet. Then the news broke. Admiral Threknor had launched his final solution operation. Without council approval. Without legal authority. He was taking his loyalist forces to human civilian centers. His message was clear. If he couldn't have victory, he would have revenge. The fragile peace shattered. The ceasefire ended before it began, and Dae-sung disappeared again. On the command ship heading toward the largest human civilian station, Threknor reviewed his plans. One massive attack. One overwhelming show of force. It would kill millions, but it would break the resistance forever, and it would restore Kaldrith authority through fear. He didn't know that young Sik had infiltrated his crew 2 weeks ago, that Mirai had hacked his ship's systems, that Sora had copied his operational plans and sent them to Dae-sung. He didn't know until it was too late. The attack fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the civilian station. 20 warships. Enough firepower to destroy a planet. Threknor opened communications to deliver his ultimatum. But the communication system didn't work. Neither did weapons, or shields, or engines. Every critical system on every ship went offline simultaneously. The fleet drifted in space, helpless. Dae-sung's voice came through the emergency channel. You wanted to show strength, Admiral. But strength without control is just violence, and violence without purpose is just murder. How did you do this? Threknor demanded. The same way I did everything else. Patiently, carefully, by putting people in the right places at the right times. Dae-sung's voice was calm. Your engineer installed my code 3 months ago. Your communications officer has been working for me for 6 weeks. Your security chief reported to me yesterday. You thought you controlled this fleet, but I've controlled it since before you launched. Around the disabled fleet, human ships appeared. Cargo vessels, mining ships, civilian transports. All armed, all ready, and outnumbering the military fleet 3 to 1. You can surrender, Dae-sung offered, or you can float here until your life support runs out. Your choice. Threknor chose surrender. His officers were already mutinying. Half of them believed in Jae-hyun's peace. The other half just wanted to survive. No one wanted to die for a lost cause. The capture of Threknor's fleet broke the military hardliners. Within hours, the High Council issued an emergency decree. All Kaldrith forces would withdraw from human space immediately. No conditions. No delays. The occupation was over. General Cormeth received the order in his command center. He read it 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. Unconditional surrender. Total withdrawal. They had lost. He looked at Sun-Hee, who stood silently nearby. You knew. You helped him? Yes, she said simply. Why? You're Keldrith. We're your people. Because some things are more important than species. Like justice. Like truth. Like admitting when you're wrong. Sun-Hee placed her badge on his desk. I resign. I'll face whatever charges you want to bring, but I won't pretend I regret what I did. Cormeth stared at the badge, then at the surrender order, then at the empty command center as his officers filed out to begin the withdrawal. He had lost everything. His command, his reputation, his purpose. He reached for his sidearm, but before he could make that final choice, another message arrived. From Daesung, live with what you did. That's your punishment. Every day remember the people you hurt. Remember the choices you made. Remember how it felt to lose everything, and maybe eventually you'll understand what you did to us. Cormeth put the weapon down. Death would be easy. Living with failure would be harder. And apparently that was exactly what the human wanted. 6 months later, the last Kaldrith military ship left human space. The withdrawal was orderly, professional, almost friendly. Both sides wanted it over. Both sides wanted to move on. The War Crimes Tribunal began. High-ranking officials faced justice. Some were convicted. Some were exiled. Admiral Threknor received life imprisonment. General Cormeth received 20 years. The humans began rebuilding. It would take decades to repair the damage. But for the first time in 3 years, they had hope. They had freedom. They had proven that conquest wasn't permanent. That resistance mattered. That one person with enough determination